Welcome to the April 4th, 2023 City Council meeting. I hereby call the meeting to order. Members of the public may attend this City Council meeting in person or may watch and listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and at the city's website at www.wayzata.org/WCTV. Public comment during the public forum and/or public hearing portions of the meeting may be provided in person at the meeting in advance or by logging into the Zoom call and raising your hand during the public hearing. When your name is called in the meeting, you will be seen and heard in our council chambers and the cable channel. You will be asked to unmute and then you may begin your comment. All public comments must include your full name and address. Second item on this evening's agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask everybody to please stand and follow along.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The third item this evening is the roll call. Let the record reflect that all members of the council are present. I would also like to note that earlier this evening, the council participated in a workshop and discussed the proposed special event permit application for the Wayzata Art and Music Festival by RBA Inc. And we also had held, our local Board of Appeal and Equalization hearing, which was recessed to April 19th, 2023 at 6 p.m. The next item on the agenda this evening is to consider the agenda as is, with one exception, and that is to remove the item under new business and to table that to the next meeting. Would someone care to make that motion?
Madam Mayor, sorry, I believe it's old business and it's item 8A.
Did I not say old business? No. I said new business?
Yeah.
Oh, pardon me. Thank you for the correction. Yes, the item under old business, and to table it to the next meeting.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second? Anybody?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item this evening is the public forum. As a reminder for those members of the public in attendance tonight who are interested in speaking, we ask that you please state your name, address, and indicate if you are representing a group. And we also ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. If the item you wish to speak about is something that is on the agenda for those that are in person, please fill out a form at the table, hand it to staff. For those that are watching via Zoom, please send a note via chat to staff and let them know what agenda item you would like to speak about. We also require that your camera is turned on when you speak. In just a moment, I did receive some blue cards for the agenda item that was under old business since we tabled that to next week. If you would like to speak under this evening during the public forum at the beginning of the meeting, happy to hear your comments. Otherwise, we can wait until we hear that item in 2 weeks on the 18th. It's up to you. If you'd like, just let staff know and they can let us know. But before we get to that, I do want to send out a congratulatory message to the Wayzata High School student athletes for an amazing and accomplished year. Still ongoing, but some amazing accomplishments thus far. Most recently, we as a council would like to congratulate the boys basketball team on their overtime win against Park Center for the Class 4A state title. You should all be incredibly proud of yourselves. You've brought home Wayzata's 5th state championship for 2022-2023. Congratulations are also in order for Wayzata's 4 other state champion teams, including volleyball, boys and girls cross country, and boys soccer. It is certainly clear that their hard work, their great leadership and teamwork lead to being champions. Let that be a lesson for how to achieve success both in and outside of your athletic careers. Again, congratulations and go Trojans. So, we do have some public comments this evening that if you would like to speak tonight, I'll just call your name. Feel free to come up to the podium and introduce yourself by providing your name and address. And this evening, we have JC, is it Grace? Grace?
JC Grace.
JC Grace, thank you for the clarification. Ms. Grace, I'm afraid we're having some technical difficulties. We can't see you, but we can certainly hear you. Well, I guess, other people can see you. The council cannot.
Okay.
But if you'd like to introduce yourself with your name and address, and again,
Sure.
we'd just like you to ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Sure. So thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is JC Grace. I live at 1044 Lake Street East. And I am going to be talking about the agenda item that was tabled because I will be out of the country when the council meets again in 2 weeks. So I want to share my thoughts now. I've spoken before the Planning Commission in its January meeting and before all of you in March to express my concerns about the project and what I view as either misunderstanding of or perhaps disregard for the comp plan and the perspectives of the Wayzata citizens. And after seeing how this proposal has been handled and discussion with many neighbors who also are frustrated and concerned, I hired an attorney who practices extensively in the area of real estate. A letter from him was included in your packet, and I'm hoping you've read it, but want to use my few minutes to summarize a few important points from that. I will also add that having been a homeowner for 20 years in the West Metro, I've never before considered hiring an attorney when dealing with a municipality's enforcement of its laws. So first, there still seems to be some lack of clarity on the role of the comp plan. Stated simply, the council may not ignore the comp plan. This is firmly established in Minnesota law, both statutorily and in the courts. The city is required to apply the density cap in its comp plan and doesn't have discretion to deviate from the cap. The comp plan, as we've discussed, guides the south side of Lake Street East as low density, or 1 to 3 units per acre, and the subdivision ordinance requires each proposed subdivision to meet the minimum lot area width and depth requirement, which means that Lot 1, Lot 2, and Lot 3 of the proposal must each individually meet the requirements in the comp plan. There is an exception to this rule where density may be calculated for a project as a whole, but that exception applies to multifamily residential uses, not to single-family residences. So in this proposal, lots 2 and 3 at 0.22 acres each are proposed to be developed at a density of 4 units per acre, which is rounding down. Obviously, it's actually closer to 5 units per acre if you just do the math. That level of density isn't permitted under the comp plan. And I'm anticipating that this may come up in your discussion. It would be illogical to look at the property as a whole before subdivision to make the density calculations. Under that approach, every time you have a plat that includes a wetland or other area that is to be preserved, the developer could make the lots smaller and possibly much smaller than what is called for in the comp plan. And what good does that do? What good does it do the neighbors of small lots created in this manner that there's some open space somewhere else in the plat, which in a large plat could be quite a ways away? I hope we can all agree that that just doesn't make sense. Aside from the legal reasons, approval of the plan means putting a developer's economic interests above the homeowners and residents of the community. I don't think any of you ran on that platform, and I would really encourage you to think about what you want to stand for. It isn't often that you see residents show up again and again, yet here we are, again requesting that the council follow its obligations to act consistently with its comp plan and consistently with the character of the neighborhood and the street. There are no other row houses within 500 feet of this property. The south side of Lake Street East is different from other parts of the neighborhood because of its clear and unobstructed lake views. You don't see the railroad tracks or the road, you have a clear sight line to the lake. The comp plan intentionally designated the south side of Lake Street East as low density, intending to keep these highly valuable properties large given this unique feature. Even the north side of Lake Street East has homes that are proportionate to their property size and layout. And the trees that are being proposed may not even survive because the 3 or 4 or 5,000 square foot homes sitting on the properties would limit the amount of sun and the ability of new trees to survive. There are just many, many reasons why this proposal should be denied. And I do want to, I want to try to share my screen with you because I do want to show you all a photo. I'm going to do this really quickly and I'm going to do it successfully. I just want to share with you a photo of what the view looks like. Well, I might not share the photo because it doesn't seem to be working. But the point is, the view from my backyard. When you look out my backyard, you see trees and you see lake. You don't see a street, you don't see a railroad. You see, in the summer, some sailboats, but you have vast open views. These properties are distinct from other areas of the neighborhood, and that must be recognized and considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. All right, next up this evening is Mr. Whitley. So I would ask, please feel free to come up to the microphone. We do have copies of all of your emails that you've sent to us individually and collectively. We have letters from, that you've submitted previously. We have your comments from before, and we have letters from the attorney. If you have additional information you would like to share with us, we're open to hearing that. But we would just ask, please come forward with any new information, but we don't want to have to rehash the items that the council has already received and reviewed for this evening. So,
Well, great. Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm not going to say much more, but I would like to say thank you.
If you could introduce yourself with your name and address, please.
I'm terribly sorry.
That's quite all right.
I'm Chester B. Whitley. I live at 1050 Lake Street in Wayzata here, just 2 lots down from the one that's being discussed. I want to thank the mayor and the councilmen and women for taking such efforts to look at this very carefully. It's really appreciated, and I think sometime it'd be good to look at that one lot just off Benton. There's a photograph in the materials. That would be totally out of character with that street, in fact, the whole neighborhood. And those homes are separated by 30 feet. The proposal for the subdivision would separate homes only by 20 feet. It'll be dramatic for you if you see that demonstration of row houses, seeing a garage door, a tiny little entry door, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Whitley. All right, next up this evening, we have Mr. Jeff Nelson. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Jeff Nelson, residing at 1037 Lake Street East. And again, thank you very much for your time and effort on this. Key point I'd like to make here is that I understand from the whole process that it was said at the last meeting that if the council does not act, and I believe it's by May 4th, that basically de facto that you approve the subdivision. And so since now this is getting tabled another 2 weeks waiting for, as I understand, something from the DNR, and then when we have this letter from Siegel and Brill, a very, very respected real estate attorney who appears to have a very, very sound logic for why the council needs to deny this particular subdivision, I was going to say I thought the council could make its decision tonight and not have to table anything based, because the DNR issue is actually a lesser issue in my mind. The bottom line is that I think all the neighbors feel that, if this had been a 2-lot subdivision proposal, no one would be here. It would be understood and accepted and very appropriate. But this 3-lot subdivision that does not meet the criteria as is outlined in this letter is a very serious issue. So again, we all thank you very much for your time and effort. We realize all of you put in a lot of time, but again, thank you, and please look carefully at that letter, because I think we all would love to not have to appeal this to another court. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. All right, last up this evening is David Gagne. Yes. Excellent. For those in our vast viewing audience, Mr. Gagne will defer for 2 weeks. All right. Is there anybody else on Zoom who would like to speak as part of the public forum this evening?
I have not received any other chats of interest at this time.
Okay, fantastic. Very good. Then we will move on to our next agenda item then, and that is to bring up new agenda items. Is there any member of the council who would like to bring up a future item for discussion? Oh, we have two
Alex, you can
hands
go
up.
first, please.
Okay.
Well, I'm in a bit of a conundrum here. I was actually a bit surprised that we pulled this. And I think we need to reconsider that. One reason, the big reason is I will not be here in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks thereafter is the clock has run out. And City Manager Dahl, you knew that I was going to be out of town. And I'm not sure if I can get back here in time for the meeting. I think this is more important than to the gentleman's case here of going to the DNR. We have a full council tonight. I think I would rather discuss it tonight, if that's possible. City Attorney, hey, can we on this at all?
Before you answer that, if you don't mind, is there an opportunity to be back for the meeting? I guess I wasn't aware that you weren't going to be here on the 18th either, and maybe I missed it, so
No,
I
don't think
apologize.
I don't think I notified you, but I did notify City Manager that I was going to be out of town. Is it possible I could get back? I don't know.
Okay.
I'm flying back that night. I'll be in the air when the council meeting is going on.
Okay.
Whether I can leave what I'll be at early, I'm not sure about that. If it comes down to it, I'll see what I can do, but I know right now I won't be here.
Okay.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Plekish, real quick, there will be another opportunity to consider it at the first meeting in May, worst case scenario, so that is still a possibility as well. That's pushing it tight to the 120-day limit. We can always work with the applicant as well to see if they'd be willing to extend. But you're right, you did inform me about that for April 18th, and that's an issue in terms of having full attendance.
Right. Okay.
Again, I don't know if it's appropriate at this point, but I'd kind of like to know, are we committed to having to delay this simply because the DNR was not informed? I mean, how big an issue is that?
Can we hold off on that conversation for a bit? So did you have an item under new business?
No, I didn't know when to bring it up, so I thought
Okay.
I'd bring it up now.
No, absolutely. Let's get to that in a moment. Kathy, you had your hand up.
Yep. On just a different note, follow-up to an item that I had brought up, I think, 2 or 3 meetings ago in regard to the pay scale of our firefighters. If I'd like to just give an update on the information I've received, if that's appropriate.
So that's not, so this is for a future agenda item to be placed?
Kind of a follow-up.
Okay.
To put closure to it.
Sure, I thought we were going to discuss it during the budget cycle. That starts in a few months. Is that, I think that's what we had discussed at the time.
Yeah, that would be appropriate. I can
That'd be
bring it
okay?
back then.
You're
Yep.
welcome to discuss it now if you'd like. I'll
make a quick statement.
We won't make any consideration or motion, and
Okay.
it'll be incorporated into the budget.
Okay, I'll make a quick statement then, since I did bring it up. I did want to thank Jeff and Aurora for getting that information for me as requested. I greatly appreciated that. I would like to bring it up at the budget cycles because I still feel that they are significantly underpaid for the services that they provide our city. So I'd like us to review that at our budget cycles. Perfect. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. We'll tackle that then. So what I'd like to do is if we could get back to Councilmember Plekish's question, perhaps a little bit later, I'd like to get through the agenda, the new agenda items, and then just take a momentary pause, depending on where we are in the evening, and get back to that. Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, so Seeing that there are no official new agenda items for the future for consideration, next up on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. And this evening, we have a few items. We have the approval of the City Council workshop and regular meeting minutes of March 7th, 2023. We have approval of the check register. We have approval of municipal licenses. We have approval of the professional services agreement with Twin City Sound and letters of agreement with artists for Sunday music in the park. Do any council members have any questions or wish to pull any consent agenda items for further discussion? No? All right, then would someone like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. All right, and then that will take us to new business. Under new business, we have consider award of contracts for Panaway Boardwalk Construction and Installation Project. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our Public Works Director and City Engineer Mike Kelly is going to walk us through this. I may chime in for a slide or two, but Mike, you want me to just move it along for you?
Perfect. That'd be great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight, we're going to be considering 5 different contracts that we have gotten bids for in the last few weeks. Jeff's got on the screen over here to your left, just a quick timeline of where we are in our process. Right in the middle of the screen, kind of February to April, is really kind of the bidding process for the Panaway Boardwalk and Docks. We can go on to the next slide.
So we are on time.
We are on time, right perfectly in the middle of where we're supposed to be. Background, we've had some, back in January, you authorized us to put these projects out for bid. A little bit further back, we talked about how we might fund these projects, and from December all the way through now, and actually we'll continue to do so, we'll be kind of reviewing how we're going to finance the project. To backtrack, back in the end of March 21st, we considered bids related to structural steel. We tabled that at that time so that staff would have a little bit more time to evaluate how to properly handle that bid. If you could skip one more slide ahead. We have, over the last month, actually several weeks, reviewed the difference between galvanized steel and stainless steel, and I've really come to the determination that based on the life expectancy of the two products, the maintenance required for each of those products, the aesthetics, that stainless steel is really the best product for this project. And although there is quite a significant cost savings in switching to galvanized steel, over the life of the product, we're likely to spend at least that in maintenance and upkeep. So at this point, it's our recommendation to move forward with the base bid only for that stainless steel or structural steel bid package. So staff recommends that we award that contract to Construction Systems, Inc., base bid only, in the amount of $1,985,931. We'll move on to the next one. We'll handle these all with one action at the end. Just recently, we opened bids for 4 other packages. Carpentry was one of those. We had 5 different bidders. The construction estimate was about $710. I can't see it from this far away. Low bidder was about $693. Staff recommends the low bidder in this case to Ebert Inc., doing business as Ebert Construction, in the amount of $693,200. Came in under bid, pretty good. Electrical, we only had 1 bidder on electrical. We're familiar with this contractor. They actually performed the work for our Panaway Phase 1 project. So again, we're excited to recommend the contract award to Laketown Electric Corporation in the amount of $96,000. Here's the big one. The big one was site work and the actual construction, piecing together of all the precast concrete, structural steel, decking, et cetera. We had 2 bidders for that. And low bidder was, I can't see it, $4,370,000.
Yes.
Yep, you got it.
Wow, don't need glasses yet. That was slightly below what our construction estimate was, so we're pleased to recommend the low bid or contract award to Zenith Tech Incorporated in the amount of $4,370,000. Lastly, we opened bids on the construction of our new docks. Here's where it gets a little bit more challenging. Our estimate, or the construction estimate, was about $2 million, and the bids came in, low bid, at about $2.6 million. We recommend, similar to what we did with structural steel, to kind of hold off for a little bit. The contractors have 60 days before they can withdraw a bid, so we have that time to review the bids and determine exactly how we want to handle them. So at this time, we would recommend tabling any action on that bid until a future date so that we can look those over. Next slide, please. Jeff and I prepared kind of a summary of all the things financial related to the more recent bids, and I'll let Jeff talk about that for right now.
Unfortunately, with the technical problems, this is going to be hard to see these updated numbers. But I'll try to walk through it or summarize it and answer any questions that the council has. So this is a financial update, essentially showing the project construction budget, where we started from with the estimates, where we were a couple weeks ago when we had our first results, and then where we're at now. And then comparing that or giving that context with the sources and uses, or the sources, I guess, the revenue that will offset the cost of the project. So in a nutshell, where we're at with the estimates, the construction estimates, we're about, as a whole, 5.7% over. That's including the lowest bid for the docks. We're right on with the boardwalk, and we're about 25% over with the docks. Hence, the recommendation to halt or to pause on the dock bid and try to see if there's more information or if there's an opportunity there to either rebid it at a lower cost or look at some design alternatives to lower the cost as well. You can see down below, when you take into account the potential bid alternates and value engineering, a conservative amount, the 730 is at a minimum is what we think we have available to reduce the overall scope. We get pretty darn close, within 1% of the resources available now. That doesn't include the other funds that could be available, meaning the potential additional conservancy revenue, additional grants, and the big ask, which is the bonding dollars from the state. We're asking for $8.28 million. We're hoping we'll get all or some of that, as well as a sales tax exemption that would reduce the cost of the overall project by about $1 million, would reduce the cost about by $1 million. So that would be a net increase in sources by about $1 million. So in a nutshell, we're pretty close to getting the project on budget with the value engineering and bid alternates, and we hope to increase that and ultimately have an option of a project that's below budget or pretty close to budget, with some options in terms of design and, dock installation as well. So I know that you don't make these decisions in a vacuum, so I want to make sure that we understand the context of the finances. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the next item, which is for the bonding request, or the approval of the sale. But just wanted to bring that up as it relates to construction costs. I'll stop there. Any questions related to that overall summary?
Actually, Jeff, if you could slide one more slide forward, I think it's a good summary that we put together. I'd like to just go real quick through your summary because I think it does a great job. Really, the big point of information is related to our boardwalk construction. We're on budget. The challenge right now is that the bids that we receive for the docks are about $540,000 over. So that's really our difference right now. At the end of the day, we will be continuing to look with our contractors for the bids that we're recommending approval tonight on value engineering alternatives, which will be cost savings. And some of those are listed below. Delaying construction of the depot docks, changing some things to changing alternatives with the railing using stainless steel, some of our logistical tweaks that we might have, now that we have real numbers with most of our bids, we can likely reduce our contingency. These are all pieces of information that why we're asking you to table the dock bid so that we have a little bit more time to evaluate all of these and come back to you in a few weeks with hopefully some cost savings to offset the overage for the dock. So with that, I think Jeff or I will stand for any questions related to the presentation thus far.
Thank you. City Manager, when you're talking about docks, for clarity, are we talking the Broadway docks, the depot docks, or all the docks?
Good question, Madam Mayor. So as a part of the entire Panaway project in this particular phase, we will be replacing, constructing all of the Broadway docks and essentially half of the depot docks. So we have to take out the Broadway docks in order to construct the boardwalk. In addition, we're adding permanent docks onto the depot and utilizing what's already there as well. So that's what the plan is. We do have the option to just construct the depot docks and leave, I'm sorry, I'm getting depot and Broadway confused. We have the option to construct all of the Broadway docks and then just keep the existing depot docks, potentially use those plastic ones as well, and wait until we have more funds to do the add-on of the depot docks, which the intent was to replace the plastic or fiberglass ones with permanent docks.
Okay.
And that's essentially the overrun right now.
Okay. Thank you. Questions of staff? Yes, please.
Jeff, just a clarification on page 84. We talk about the financial and budget considerations.
Yeah.
And so you do list the combination, so we'll have a non-general levy source that is coming from state bonds, TIF funding, and donations from the Wayzata Conservancy. In the statement earlier, we are asking the state for $8 million in bonds. But in our documents, we are bonding $6.5 million. Is the ask higher because you're thinking that we'll get less?
Councilmember Iverson and Mayor, so that's a different source. That is and I think the term bonds gets easily confused. So that 6.5 million is essentially the loan that we're taking out from the tax increment district. The 8.28 million that we're asking for, that's essentially a grant. That would be above and beyond the 6.5 million.
So to clarify for me, if we don't get that $8 million from the state, we'll have to find another source for that?
Well, we think we can still bring this project under budget or at budget where we don't need to find another source. That will require some value engineering, which we're still in the process of working on. Essentially, the additional money from the state would help to offset if we ultimately get to build the project like our first preferred choice is. That'll help offset the increase in budget, and it will also help fund future phases. So phase 2B, like the section foreman's house, and 3, which is the depot and the eco park.
Okay, so help me understand. How much of that $8 million do you need to move forward with what's in front of us tonight?
Well, going back here, let me go back to that.
Maybe I'm just missing something, but
No,
I
these are
thought
good
the
questions.
6.5 million bond that is in front of us tonight.
So if Councilmember Iverson, if we went forward with building the project without any alternates, without any value engineering, we would use $815,000 of the bond or the grant amount from the state to offset the overage.
Okay.
Those are updated numbers based on today's results of the bond sale and a few other things.
So asked differently, with the bonds that we approved and we're finalizing the sale of the bonds here tonight, with that which is essentially fronting the money that we'll be getting from the TIF district.
Exactly, yep.
Are we 100% covered for this phase of Panaway?
With the value engineering that we think is possible, yes. You can see here, we're within 1%. So, Madam Mayor, we're pretty confident that we're going to get there. But that's why we don't want to move forward with the docks right now, to give ourselves a little bit more time so we can get there, and you'll have a chance to vote on that.
So that 1% includes the docks.
The 1% includes a deduction of $500,000 approximately for the docks. We think we can get that more.
Okay.
Can I add on to that, Mayor, please?
Of course, please.
The value engineering part scares me a bit, because that's a really big unknown. Mike, do you have any feel? Is that going to be a 10% reduction, a 20% reduction? I mean, what is normal in the industry?
Well, it's hard to say. The challenge is, we've been speaking with our structural steel contractor. One of the reasons that we're recommending moving forward with our stainless steel bid is, first of all, it's the best product. But while we've been having conversations with that contractor, they've offered some potential value engineering changes. We think those are going to be about $230,000 in savings. So that's something that we can realize, and we'll be bringing back a change order to that effect, about $230,000. Those value engineering changes have ripple effects into the bids that we would be awarding tonight. The contractor that has to put things all together has to make some changes to adapt to some of the changes that the structural steel contractor is making. So there are likely to be easier installation processes that will happen, hence a savings. We won't know what that is until we award the contract. The main piece of the puzzle that is overbid right now by about $550,000 is the docks. As we mentioned before, we are extremely close, probably within $50,000, $60,000 overall on the boardwalk contract. Very close, less than 1%. That's why we want to move forward with that project, because we feel confident that the boardwalk project is constructible at budget. We know that there's going to be some value engineering things that are going to improve that. We want to know what the magnitude of those is so that we can help you make a decision on whether or not to move forward with the dock piece later in a couple weeks. The dock piece is not as crucial right now from a timing standpoint. It's going to be the last thing that happens. The goal for us is to get the boardwalk constructed yet this season, and docks would likely go in after boating season this year, and hopefully before boating season next year. So we still have all the way until about April, May of 2024 to determine a contract and move forward with a contractor. We want to figure out the right decision, and because that's the highest overrun right now, we think that it's the best decision to hold off on that. I hope that answered your question. Value engineering is going to be difficult. I think we're going to see some pretty significant changes in the contracts that we're asking you to award tonight, just because we've already seen some in our structural steel bid. The dock one, we just need to have some more conversations with our contractor and be able to come back to you with alternatives.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just wanted to add on that Bob Jansen of KA Construction is here to answer any questions that the council has about the bidding process or what we're seeing in the market. And Scott Jordan of Civitas is also online via Zoom to answer any questions, value engineering and any design impacts too. He's happy to chime in on those.
Okay.
Two more, Mayor, I'm sorry.
No apologies needed.
I know we have a number built in the budget for construction overrun, so I don't want us to lose sight of potentially what could happen. I've never been on a job site that we haven't ran into issues. And so we just need to, as a council, keep that in the back of our mind.
I think we have, just a moment to that end, I think Director Kelly did mention we have a contingency.
Yeah.
What's that contingency amount?
I want to say the contingency right now is 10% or so.
6.
What we would suggest is reducing that to 6. We would not reduce it below 6 because, as you mentioned, we know that there are things that all encounter during a construction project. And we just want to be prepared for those. And at the end of the day, if we don't spend it, we win.
And so the recommendation to potentially, I'd like to build off your question a little bit, or statement, your recommendation to reduce it to 6, would it not be a little early in the process to do that? We don't
haven't.
even have the materials yet.
We haven't formally reduced it yet, but knowing that we have 5 of the 6 bid packages with real numbers, actually 6, all 6, we're acting on 5. We're hoping that you'll act on 5, a total of 5 of those. We feel confident that reducing that contingency number somewhat for those 5 packages is worthwhile. So as we present our findings over the next couple weeks of savings for value engineering, potential change orders, et cetera, we'll come back to you with that better number. Is it 6%? Is it 7%? We've been carrying, I believe, 10%.
I think it's because we've also carried 10% when we did the parking ramp. Better safe than sorry, and I think we got close.
Yeah, we actually came in a few percent under that,
Yeah.
6, 7. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So we don't want to remove it altogether. We do want to maintain 6, 7%.
Well, you know me, I'm a nervous Nelly. I'd rather keep it at 10. Better safe than sorry.
One
Yes.
more, and then I promise I'll be done. Because, so I've talked about this before, but help me understand again, with the bonds that we're taking out, the $6 million, there will be an interest that the city has to pay of around $3 million. How will that be paid?
Councilmember Iverson, ultimately, whatever that number is, and our consultants, Stacy and Jennifer, are here for the next item, and they can talk about that and what it really means. But that'll be paid through the tax increment.
So again, from the TIF district? Yep. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, other questions from council? No? Okay. Seeing that there are no questions, I might need my binoculars.
I can read those to you. I actually thought about with the white on yellow, which we've used traditionally on the PowerPoint, of changing that to a different color.
I like the colors. It's my eyes.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you can change those for me. I can,
what are-
actually, I can read it. So we will take 4 different actions. So the first would be a motion to award structural steel contract to Construction Systems, Inc. in the amount of $1,985,000, $1,985,931. I will make that motion. Would someone like to second that motion?
I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Oh, we'll have some discussion
Oh,
here.
okay.
I thought we were going to talk about this entire thing before we're going through each one. So I'll make some comments that relate to this, but all the rest at the same time.
Perfect.
Which is, I think, with what we're approving here tonight, which apparently is going to be 4 different motions, I think we're in pretty safe ground financially. We pretty much have this covered. It is the docks that are on the bubble right now, but we're not talking about that tonight. And we have other things that are going to happen in the future that are going to maybe mitigate it completely. If we get the bonding bill passed with what we're asking for, or any part of what we're asking for, that issue goes away. So what we're voting on tonight, I think, is a fairly straightforward, fairly safe thing to do. So with that said, I'm in favor of this one contract.
Only the one?
We'll see about the other 3.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I like it. All right, any other discussion? No? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay?
All right, the next motion would be a motion to award electrical contract to Laketown Electric Corporation in the amount of $96,000. Who would care to make that motion?
So move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Ditto.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay?
The motion passes as well. The third is a motion to award carpentry contract to Ebert, Inc., DBA Ebert Construction, in the amount of $693,200.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That motion passes. And the last is to award site work and Panaway Structures installation contract to Zenith Tech, Inc. in the amount of $4,370,000.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
That motion passes as well. Thank you, staff. All right, we are still under new business. And the next item for this evening, under new business, is to consider adoption of Resolution 20-2023, providing for the sale of general obligation temporary tax increment financing bonds, Series 2023A. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to kick this one off, and then I'm going to ask Stacy Cavilving of Ellers and Associates to come up and give us an update on the bond sale today. Not going to go through that. We just went through the timeline and where we're at. Everything's kind of is on time and in direction with our overall goal of starting construction in June. We did have a time restraint on issuing these bonds. If we didn't issue these bonds by June of this year, we would lose the opportunity to utilize tax increment financing for the construction of the boardwalk and docks. Hopefully my screen doesn't keep moving, but just real quick, funding history. We've been working on this for more than several years, and the overall goal is not to burden the general taxpayer with this project. We talked a little bit earlier about the major funding sources, including the $4 million by the state. We hope to get more in the next couple months. We also ultimately did receive special legislation to use TIF 6 funds, which we discussed before as well, for the project. Typically, TIF funds can't be used for public recreational type purposes. We got special legislation to use TIF 6 increment for those purposes. TIF 6 is exceeding its original estimates of increment that's being generated, so that's why we can use that as a fund, but we need to get special approval for that. Most recently, we've talked at length about TIF 6 and TIF 5 and the prioritization of the allocations for increment. The Panaway was a high priority. So more recently, from December to now, we've been working on this process. Ultimately, we called for the sale and authorized the issuance back in February and March. And today, we have the results of the bond sale in order to continue to move forward with this funding process. I will say that these are, the label is temporary TIF bonds, because as Councilmember Pluckish indicated, there's a lot going on here, not only with the uses of this project, so all the construction costs that we're trying to dial in and whittle down, but also the sources are changing too. The dollar amount for the bond payment you see in this graph went up $8,000. We expect that we'll get something from the state. We don't know how much that is, but there's a lot of moving parts with the sources and uses. So that's why these bonds are temporary bonds, where we can go back within the next 3 years and essentially refinance them to hopefully get a better interest rate, but also to lessen the overall amount if that full $6 million is not needed. But time will tell based on the additional money that we get from other parties and the overall construction costs. We do know that we don't feel comfortable increasing that overall amount at all. And this is taken from our TIF cash flow. You can see the $6 million and change reflected in the obligations for TIF 6. And this is a diagram showing the potential up to $10 million that are available in future funding sources between the state, the tax exemption, and additional conservancy revenue as well. Nope, this was not updated. But overall, actually, this is a good time to bring in Ms. Cavilvang to talk about the results of the, I'll try to pause this here, results of the bond sale, and then we'll come back to the recommended action this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Good to see you tonight. As Jeff had alluded, you are awarding the sale of $6.555 million in temporary general obligation tax increment bonds. More importantly, the reason why we did issue them as temporary, I think it's the big question that maybe, a council member you were asking, is if in fact you have a request in at the state for $8 million, if you get $1 million, if you get $8 million, you're not going to need that $6 million in the bond proceeds. So we issue them on a temporary basis because you don't know what your final funding is going to come in, and that's why you do it. Now, the temporary bonds that we issued, as Jeff had stated, they're issued for a 3-year term, and we can call them as soon as August 1st of this year. So it's a quick call, and what that means is that we can refinance them. So if in fact, at the end of the day, you get something out of this legislative session and you get $2 million, we can call those bonds and refinance them on a longer term basis, because now we know we only need $4 million of those bonds proceeds, essentially is how it would end up working. So as Jeff stated, you guys have maintained your AAA rating. You've had that for quite some time. It's very strong based upon your good management, your liquidity, and the financials of your community. So there's no issues. It's a stable outlook, so we don't foresee any issues with that in the future. We held the bond sale today at 10 a.m. in our office. We received 4 bids, and the lowest responsible bidder was Piper Sandler out of Minneapolis here. The true interest cost is about 3.16%. It's right where we anticipated it when we did the pre-sale with you guys. So for tonight, your resolution is to award the sale to Piper Sandler as the lowest responsible bidder, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Great, thank you, Stacy. Questions regarding the bond sale? Yes, Jeff?
Is the 3.16, can you explain that? Is that the interest rate we're paying, or they've agreed to charge for the bonds, or explain that a little?
Yep, so the 3.16 is your true interest cost. So what that is, that includes all of your cost of issuance and your time to the payoff of the bonds. So if you look at your coupon or the rate you're paying, it's at 3%. But you have it's a par bond, so you have one interest payment or one payment at the end when we refinance those in 3 years, so.
Just seems less than I would have expected, given some of the rates I've heard around. So it's just municipal bonds, because they're tax-free, they're less?
Mayor, Councilmember, that's correct. That's the thing that you get to enjoy as municipalities. We're not similar to the private market in bonds or loans that you would see that are out there.
Okay. Anything else? Any discussion from the council? Nope. I have a procedural question with regard to the motion that's up on the screen. Do we need the amount, $6,555,000, correct?
Yes, Mayor, you should have that inserted in the motion.
Okay. Do we need to call out the sale to Piper Sandler?
No.
No. Okay. So just the amount is all we would need? All right. Very good. Well, then, would someone care to make a motion to adopt Resolution 20-2023, resolution relating to the general obligation and temporary tax increment bonds in the amount of $6,555,000, Series 2023A, and authorizing the issuance, awarding the sale, fixing the form and details, and providing for the execution and delivery thereof and security therefor?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
That's
Well
been
done, Madam Mayor.
First and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes. All right. I will. That is it. Thank you very much. Our last item under new business is to consider approval of a special event permit for the Wayzata Art and Music Festival to be held by RBA. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to go through this one, and Public Works and City Engineer, Public Works Director and City Engineer Mike Kelly is here to answer any questions, as well as Chief Schultz. They really work hand in hand with large events like this, so they can answer all your questions about logistics and public safety. But I'm just going to kick it off, and we'll go from there. Staff recently received a proposal from Rick Bourne of RBA about putting on 2 concerts during the Wayzata Art Experience, the Chamber's popular event that is run in late June. Specifically for this year, it'd be June 23rd and June 24th. Similar to the Beach Bash in that area in between the Boatworks building and the marina in the parking lot. So what that would mean, of course, is some impacts to the beach and marina in terms of closures, especially in the evening, and then just overall kind of access changes and reductions as well to the area. Over the last two weeks, the council discussed the item on March 21st and then again on April 4th. The main highlights of discussion or the concerns were to minimize the impacts to the beach and marine area, crowd security and making sure that there was no, limited liability with movement of people and trampling that we've seen in other festivals. The amount of public safety, just because this type of event hasn't been held at this time of the year in this type of music before. And also noise mitigation in hours of operation. What's that good balance of providing for a successful event, but also with respect to the surrounding community. So those have all been discussed over the past couple weeks in 2 different occasions at the workshop. You can see there that was in the workshop materials as well, the overall event layout, again, similar to the Beach Bash. And overall, I would leave it up to the council to ask questions of myself, Public Works Director and City Engineer Mike Kelly, the Chief, Mark Schultz, and then we also have Rick Bourne of RBA here to answer any questions that you have about the event as well. But they're hoping to get approval tonight with whatever conditions the council feels necessary in order to move forward and scheduling the event so it can certainly happen. So happy to answer questions or have somebody else come up to answer any questions that the council has.
Fantastic, thank you. Any questions of the city manager? No? Okay. So we talked about hours of operations during the workshop. Typically, our noise ordinance calls for no noise to be able to travel past your property. Chief, don't quote me on the exact language of the noise ordinance, but past 10 p.m. However, it is anticipated, similar to the Beach Bash that occurs during James J. Hill, that we put a cutoff time on the permit of 11 p.m., correct?
Right, so that would be an exception to our ordinance, that's correct.
Okay. And we also discussed a communication plan with the marina slip holders, the community, Public Works is gonna work in terms of signage around the beach in advance and around the area to make sure people were aware of what was going to be accessible or not. So all of those things will happen with coordination with Public Works and the police department, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Very good. I'm sorry, I thought you had a question? Okay. We did have, in the workshop, I really do appreciate the work that Public Works and the police department have put together in collaboration with Mr. Bourne to provide another event, and the flexibility that Mr. Bourne has shown so that we can try and keep the beach open its prime summertime hours as long as possible in advance of the event, so that residents and visitors can still enjoy our amenities, yet we also want to ensure that we have a safe environment for the concert itself, and so allowing for the proper closure at the appropriate time. So we do ask for the public's patience and to show a little bit of grace during this time. It will be a little bit different, assuming that this passes, and we'll see how it goes, and and how we can help ring in summer, so, with a fun event. Seeing that there are no questions, I think also Public Works and the chief were going to work with other safety personnel, both from the city and outside parties, just to make sure we have all of our bases covered, so attendees are safe along the way there. So, all right. Well then, would someone care to make a motion to approve the special event permit for the Wayzata Art and Music Festival to be held by RBA?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Kathy. And a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much. All right. All right, I'm going to ask for a brief recess. So we will reconvene in about 5 minutes or so. So we will stand in recess till then. Okay, we are back in session from a brief recess, and we have recently concluded, pardon me, new business. I did want to circle back momentarily with regard to a request that Councilmember Plekish had to actually put back on the agenda the item that had been tabled for the next meeting under old business. I did have an opportunity to speak briefly with Councilmember Plekish because the council as a whole agreed to table that item to the next meeting. I am concerned that as members of the public may have been watching and then subsequently turned off because we said we would not discuss it, to bring it back tonight probably wouldn't, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'd prefer to stick with what was originally discussed so that people, it is incredibly transparent what we were looking to do rather than going back and forth. So Councilmember Plekish has graciously
Well, I don't know how
offered to
gracious I
try.
am. That's out of character for me, but I am going to be out of town, but I'm slated to fly back that evening, and I've committed that I'm going to do everything in my power to get back in time for the meeting. We'll be flying back that day. I'll get out of my commitments earlier in the day. I'll try to get an earlier flight. I'll do that first thing tomorrow. So if things work out, I will be here for the meeting in 2 weeks, because I think it's important for all 5 of us to be here.
It absolutely is. So thank you very much for agreeing to do that. And in the off chance, oh, I should not have had carbonated water. Oh, my. In the off chance that there are any travel delays, we still have the opportunity. It's not ideal, but we still have May 2nd, which is our first meeting in May. Still puts us within the time frame. We will certainly do everything we can to have this buttoned up and addressed by the next meeting. But as we know, with air travel, sometimes things happen, but we're gonna try and make sure you're back just in time for that. So with that, we will not be bringing back the item under old business for this evening. All right, that takes us then to the city manager's report and discussion items.
Madam Mayor, I do not have any report tonight.
My goodness. Okay. Teasing. So do we think we've had our last snow event?
Nope.
I hope so.
I
supposed to be-
heard 2 no's, and I hope so.
It's supposed to be 70 next week.
How is the Public Works crew holding up?
We're holding up pretty well. We're tired.
Yeah.
It was a busy weekend. This type of snow in the spring is, as they call it, Widowmaker snow. It's very heavy, very challenging to move around. Our guys are excited to see spring.
I think the state of Minnesota is excited to see spring. Yes. I was actually in northern Minnesota over the weekend, and there was a good still 5 feet of snow on the ground. It was deep. So spring has not sprung there yet. Anyway, well, good. Again, just as we close out tonight, huge shout out and congratulations to the Wayzata boys basketball team. Huge accomplishment. Thanks to the Karish family with the marquee down on Lake Street for their recognition of the team. That's always fun. And yeah, to all the other teams at Wayzata that are doing just such a great job.
Crushing it.
They are crushing it. So go Trojans. Said that earlier, but that's always fun. And hopefully they'll bring back their homecoming parade someday soon. I would like that. But anyway, that's all I have as well. I guess we will stand for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And a second? Second. Thank you. It's been first and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. We are adjourned.